Tutti frutti.
Cool.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dynasty Dudes are back. I wanted to say that first, but welcome to this week's edition of the Dynasty Dudes. And today we've got
A July 4th extravaganza.
we've got a fun show on tap here, folks. We've got my co-host Russell Clay, who is wearing some sort of bandana, and we have fellow DLF writer James Simpson from the other side of the pond. How's it going tonight,
Hello.
boys?
Awesome. I can confirm that you can officially learn anything on YouTube because I bought this bandana about an hour ago, and I just went on
And
YouTube and learned how to tie. I learned how to tie a bandana from some old biker dude. So there's everything on there. It's great.
Amazing. So, what we're going to do today, this is a special hot dog eating edition of the Dynasty Dudes. And when we
American edition, yes.
Yeah, it's the American, the whole hot dog eating contest was earlier today. Joey Chestnut lost for the first time in like 9 years. And when we scheduled this event, we were like, oh, this is going to be hilarious because, James is an American. But then we realized just like 10 minutes ago that James doesn't have hot dogs. James,
They don't exist.
how was your hot dog search? Did you not even look?
Well, funnily enough, before the hot dog challenge even came about, I planned a nice big July the 4th dinner, but I had ribs, I had wings, I had fries, I had slaw, but no hot dogs on the agenda.
Oh wait, what time is it right now?
It is 10 past 10.
What? At night?
Oh,
Yeah, so I mean, it's been and gone. It's way past hot dog time.
Oh, this is just completely different.
Didn't take that one into account, did you?
No. Well, whatever. Fine.
all right.
That's your fault.
So there is some interesting notes from the Dynasty world the last couple days. More so on the offensive side, the only real big thing was Antonio Gates suspended for performance-enhancing drugs. And so is this the Ladarius Green coming out party? Is this just going to be 4 weeks without Antonio Gates and then back to normal? What are our thoughts on the Chargers tight ends right now?
I think it could go either way, but I think he's worth investing more in now, definitely. Because if there's just a glimmer of hope, he has a 5-catch game for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. That one game would be it's such a huge value boost, and I totally agree with drafting him earlier now just because of this 4-game suspension. Because who's to say he would have gotten this opportunity without this,
Yep, I completely agree. I think it's if you bought him when the hype was about, you probably just held on until now. I don't know about you guys, but I did that. I just thought, well, there's no point in selling him while he's not doing anything. So now's your chance to either hold if you still believe in him, and he will get that chance to shine, or you could use now as your chance to sell now that the value goes up a bit. Or, like Russell said, if you wait and you even get one game out of him, and you still feel like, oh, he's a bit of a hype player, but he at least had a chance, then it's your chance to sell him as well. So it's only good for green owners, only good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for me, it's like if you had the Ladarius Green lotto ticket, that lotto ticket just increased odds a little bit. It's not like, okay, now I'm going to draft him 5 rounds earlier, but around round and a half short, it's definitely worth looking at.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so other news came in last night, this morning. Andrew Quarles was arrested for shooting a gun in public. This is not that Andrew Quarles really had any dynasty value, but Richard.
It happens.
What?
I have such a tough time visualizing
You have him?
this. No, I have such a tough time visualizing this. What was this crime? What was the scene of the crime? Was he just standing in a road just shooting at a tree or something, or was what happened in this criminal offense? I want to know how this happened. But anyway,
It's a strange one.
But yeah, getting back to the dynasty thing, Richard Rodgers has been a name that has come up a little bit lately as a late round redraft flyer and dynasty. and this kind of does increase his odds of getting targets, at least early on, if Quarles ends up being suspended.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm in. He was a third round pick last year, if I remember correctly, right?
I have no clue.
Yeah,
That sounds about right.
So, I mean, he fits into the Island of Misfit Toys sort of criteria. Yeah, he was a third rounder last year, so, I mean, I wouldn't spend a ton of capital on him, but if you can get him in the 18th round of a startup or buy him for like a fourth rounder or something, I mean, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Corliss news affects him too much, but I still think Rogers is worth a late round flyer. It depends what you're doing at tight end because, you guys are probably Nathan. I know you're just Gronk. If you don't, then you don't need to worry about sort of middle tier tight ends. You can just get Gronk and then take a couple of these late flyers.
No, I traded Gronk to Russell. I don't have Gronk.
No way.
But basically, like this is sort of like the Ladarius thing, where he's probably going to get more opportunity now. He doesn't have the same upside as Ladarius Green or the same perceived value, but similar. Like he might get an opportunity now that something's happened to the guy in front of him on the depth chart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, so we'll move on to the last really Roto World blurb worthy of talking about. Dez and Cowboys are nearing a deal long term because he's been franchised and he's been pissed about that. So while it would have been fun to watch pissed Dez for 16 games, this at least guarantees that he'll be there if he does indeed sign the long-term extension. Thoughts on Dez in Dynasty? Is he still our number one or number two asset?
Yeah, he's my number one. And it's not. I mean, I get why Odell Beckham would be in the realm, but I think Dez is, if not equal to Calvin, maybe a little below him in terms of talent. And he's got 3 or 4 years on him, so
yeah,
that's
Dez is. Yeah, I completely agree. I was just going to say the same thing. Dez is still my number one.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's number one in that sort of number one. Like you could take Beckham, you could take a Julio.
Right, they're all within.
Either way, they're all there.
They're all relatively the same value,
Mhm. But yeah, I think it was bound to happen at some point. So if it happens, that's fine.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we knew was going to happen. We were just waiting for when it actually gets done. It's not even done yet, but it's getting closer as it seems. So it is currently 5:17. We'll go with 5:19. Russell and I are going to start our hot dog eating contest, and so that's at 5:19 in 2 minutes, and you see the hot dogs, and we're just going to start with James. Talk a little bit about your series for searching for consistent.
I gotta introduce this. The rules are number one. The actually only important rule is that if you throw up, you have to do it on camera. That's my only rule.
That's ridiculous.
That's the only rule. And then once you're out, you're out.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So, anyways, feel free to start talking about what gave you the idea for your Searching for Consistent Greatness series, and what are some of the things you took away from it?
The series itself is basically a look at weekly point scoring as opposed to yearly point scoring, because basically a lot of the time when you see redraft, especially redraft ADP, is wholly based on how people did in the previous year, and a lot of it takes into account just how they did, the amount of points they scored for the whole year, and lists it, blah, blah, blah. But I basically think that I'm looking for how players did week by week, rather than just a yearly score. I think weekly score is a lot more important. It tells you a lot more about how players score. So, searching for consistent greatness, basically I went through and worked out what it takes to be a top 12 quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end. How are we doing, fellas?
We're doing amazing. You're doing a great job.
Yeah? I'll carry on.
Okay.
What it takes to be a top 12 or top 24 quarterback, running back, wide receiver, or tight end. And worked out in what percentage of games each player's reached that point, reached a certain amount of points, went over it, went in between that wide receiver, like that top 12, top 24 range, and went in that top range. And then to top it off, I did something called Superstar Weeks, which is looking at basically essentially like a top 6 week. So it's a difference between a top 12 and a top overall week to see who has the most big games based on the amount of games that they play. And I just think
All
it
right,
was really,
so
yeah, go ahead.
with the onesie positions, quarterback and tight end, a lot of people like to stream them.
Yeah.
It is a guy that's more consistent. Like, do you think that you don't even need a streamer essentially? Like, I mean, obviously, if you have Gronk, you're not streaming. But when you don't, a lot of people stream when they don't have that top 1 or 2 guy.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on streaming essentially? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily a fan of streaming. I'm fine with late round quarterbacks. I'm fine with getting a starter as late as you can. But in Dynasty, I want some kind of comfort, someone that I know is going to last for a while. I don't want to have to be chopping and changing all the time. It's fine if you're saying that my quarterback 1's going to be a starter all the time, and then my quarterback 2, I'm just going to pick up any old nobody from the street.
Hold on, I'm 6 in,
Wow.
and I'm starting to feel the pressure build.
We're only what, 2 minutes into it?
Yeah, no. We started at like 5:18.5, but yeah, I have 1, 2, 3, 3. I'm at 6. I think I'm on 5 right now.
You're on 5. Okay, so we're already over Dwayne Brown. Sorry, Dwayne Brown, you're out of the stakes. I don't know how many other guesses were that low, but that's done. Yeah, so I'm fine with late round quarterbacks. Obviously, I've done a little bit of 2 QB work with Breeze, Eric Breeze. We've done our 2 QB rankings, and I think if you're talking 2 QB leagues, you never really want to be streaming. It's just horrible. You need a starter. You need to value them highly. And I feel the same way. You can get someone late that starts, but it's essential to have those guys that do start.
Yeah, I think in redraft, I listen to the later round quarterback situation more often than not. But like last year, you could target a guy like Russell Wilson in the 10th, and you knew he was going to be starting for you every week. But
exactly
in Dynasty, like I'd rather just have, I mean, even a lower round, like a lower round consistent guy like Drew Brees, I'd rather have him than just completely punt the position,
Yeah, and I think Drew Brees is exactly the type of player that I'd be valuing this year because he's kind of on that age / coming off what we think is a down year and also losing weapons. And he's dropped from where he's QB9 in the latest ADP data. And just based on this study, and we know already that he's a complete stud, but based on this study, he's highest percentage of weeks as a top 24.
Yeah, to add on to that for a second, his yards per attempt and completion percentage weren't down last year, and so I feel like his fantasy stats might have been down compared to his peers, but he didn't actually have that bad of a year, and I can understand people thinking losing Graham's going to be a big deal, but I mean there was Drew Brees, fantasy god before Graham was around, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I love him this year.
He scored over 16.3 points every single game last week, and every single week last year, and that's supposedly a down year. And if you're getting that kind of consistency with a huge upside that he gives you just by being him, then he's cheap at the moment. I think you're gonna get another couple of years.
Yeah, he had the higher floor, but he did. When you think back to, I don't know if you play DFS at all, but when you think back to DFS, like everyone was fading him on the road because he was just so bad on the road, and then he'd come to the, the Saints Stadium and he'd be rocking it. Now it was bad compared to his price in DFS, but like you said, he does have a pretty high floor weekly.
Yeah, that's it, especially for where he's being drafted. So yeah, he's one of the guys that definitely from this study it was like, yeah, he's still been really good, and I think he still will be really good. So,
How did Ryan Tannehill check out?
he was a very interesting one. I talked about him a little bit on the DLF podcast as well. His numbers aren't great because basically his numbers include his rookie year, so you got 3 years worth of data. A lot of the veteran guys, you're taking out their rookie year, so all those numbers bump up a little bit. But Tannehill's been very consistent, just not huge with QB1 weeks or big weeks. So he's got a nice floor, but he's not really giving you much in terms of difference making, I like to call it, because I don't think he's holding up to where he's being drafted at the moment. He's been drafted as the Dynasty QB6.
Now,
Yeah,
if Ryan Tannehill was on this show right now, how many hot dogs do you think he could eat? Based on your research.
He would place in the top 12, so he'd be okay.
The thing with Tannehill throughout his career, I've always just rather gone with the old guy, gone with Breeze, gone with Manning, gone with Brady, because they're cheaper and they have a much higher weekly floor and weekly ceiling. And while Tannehill will end up being QB11, it just doesn't seem like something exciting I want on my roster.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
Yeah,
I mean, you definitely want to do in Dynasty.
Yeah, he's been so great for the past couple of years for redraft. I've just basically, you can pick him up as like the 20th or something quarterback just at the end, and he can be your good floor guy. But I don't, like you just said, you don't want that over a few years at Dynasty. I prefer to have someone that gives you a bit more upside for a couple fewer years, and then look for someone young as well.
So what tight ends stuck out in the series, especially better than what we think, or worse than what we might think?
The first big surprise was just based on. Did you guys? I'm not sure if you guys have seen the top 24 of tight ends. Basically based on games played versus weeks placed in the top 24. Who do you think was number one? Who do you think would be number one?
Gronk.
It'd be Gronk, right?
Yeah.
But just based on Travis Kelce's last year, his rookie year, and the amount of games he played, he actually placed in the top 24, 15 out of 16 games.
Wow.
So he was actually top of that list, just based on games played.
I asked Ryan yesterday to make the graph of the ADPs from like 2 years ago or whatever, because I knew I did a startup last year and he went in the 19th round, and I was like, geez, I wonder what that ADP graph looks like, and it was unbelievable. Like early last offseason, he was going in like the 20th rounds of a startup.
Yeah. It is crazy. He's exactly the kind of player that, whether you like him or not, you kind of had to get him before he broke out, because now you've got the option to either sell if you think he overperformed, because his value might never be higher. But you don't.
Let's do a number count. I'm currently at 10 with a little bite of 1, and I'm struggling at the moment. How are we doing, Russell?
I'm hurting. This is 11 and 12 right here.
Oh, you bastard!
Wow.
You're gonna. Yeah.
How much time do we have left?
Oh shit! It's over. I just noticed that. Yeah, we started like at 5:18, and it's now 5:28.
So what did we get?
So
I'd say this is 11. 11 and a quarter.
Wow.
Yeah, I had 10 and a bite, so you beat me.
So we got some guesses around 20 or 21.
Yeah.
So wait, what was your final count, Nathan?
10.
So 21 and a quarter.
All right, so we'll have to get tallied up after the show.
Yeah.
Very entertaining stuff. So. let's get back on the track here.
That was a little condescending, Nathan.
I don't know. Jesus.
All right.
So, James, we were talking about Kelsey. A lot of people are already high on him. Is there someone who you think that is going overdrafted based on your results?
I'd say not necessarily, sort of slightly based on the results and slightly not. I think Julius Thomas, just because I think even though he's still, I do like him. I still think he's a good player. Just going from Manning to Bortles, it's just not going to be. It's just not going to be as productive, and I think he's being a little overdrafted. I mean, his numbers held up. He's definitely he was really good over the last couple of years. He was just in those tight end 1 weeks. He was just behind the top two guys, but I don't think they'll hold up in Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Okay, that makes sense.
To get the same type of production and targets and like efficiency on targets that he did, especially in terms of touchdowns, you know.
Yeah. Agreed.
Oh, by the way, I'm wearing my Leron Landry jersey because I can't think of a more American man than him with all the steroids and football playing. And I bought this Budweiser hat.
You are such a.
So James is getting a little peek into American culture here. This is how all Americans are.
I'm gutted to say my screen's gone blank, so I can't even see. I can't even see you at the moment, and I'm missing out big time.
Well, you'll have to watch the show and subscribe to our channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll get back into the searching for greatness in a little bit. We're just do some Dynasty price checks and just talk about a few players right now. First one that Russell wanted to bring up was Clive Walford. If we still did Couldn't Care Less Island, he'd be on mine.
What?
I don't care about him. But Russell and James, if you have any thoughts on Clive Walford, go right ahead.
Yeah, okay, so I like his draft position. I like sort of where he went. I don't think Michael Rivera is going to be in the way for very long. He was honestly like one of the worst tight ends in the league last year, both in the receiving game, and he was literally the worst run-blocking tight end in the game. So I think they saw that as a point where they wanted to get better, and they used a third-rounder on Walford. So I could see him... I know tight ends don't normally have good year ones, but I could see him having this role and getting 60 to 70 targets in his first year, if things go right. Obviously, in a worst-case scenario, you might have to wait longer, but he's definitely getting a shot at the starting job eventually.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mystery to me, just because I feel like he's more athlete than baller. Just based on what I've heard and seen. But yeah, I don't think Michael Rivera is gonna stop him doing anything if he's supposed to do something, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, Rivera's
I agree with
not
that.
Be the one to hold him back. Yeah, I just don't know whether he is or not. I mean, there's just a bunch of tight ends. I think, you know, there becomes a point, and Nathan, I either heard you say this on Boxer or on another podcast, but just when you get past a certain point with tight ends, it's like I don't really care about the difference between tight end 10 and tight end 20 or whatever. There's just no huge point difference, and it doesn't matter where you are. So I'd happily just take a few late flyers, and Wolford might be one of them.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much when it comes to those late round tight ends, like I have my favorites like Ladarius Green or Jason Morrow or guys like that. But I still pretty much just wait for whichever one drops and just use him as a, red shirt type tight end where I'm not expecting much. But if he turns into something, that's great.
Yeah.
Exactly. I just love those combos. So if you get an Amaro, then you'll probably back it up with a Gates and a Witten or whatever, Gates or a Witten.
Yeah.
And then if you go for an older guy, then you'll get another younger guy to back it up. Yeah, it's just whatever you need based on what you've got already. He might be worth the risk.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to the next one. And this is a guy that I'm starting to think is going to be the turning point in a lot of Dynasty
Yes.
and or not, more so redraft, but in a lot of fantasy leagues this year
Yes.
because
Totally agree.
Joseph Randall was going like the 6th round in redraft right now, maybe even earlier, and it's just like people are
Mm.
really trusting that he can run behind that O-line. And I don't have a good read on it, but I'm not investing 6th round redraft. I'm not investing 10th round dynasty. I'm just not doing it. I'll let someone else do it, but I do recognize that it could be a game changer.
That is exactly how I'm looking at this situation. I don't have a good enough read on him or the Cowboys to be like, yeah, he's going to be the feature back this year. But I'm also not saying that it couldn't happen either, you know. But it's just
Mhm.
not a situation I'm willing to invest in, especially like I'm seeing 5th round
Yeah.
now, and it's
Yeah.
just like that's just too steep for me. Um,
Yeah.
what in terms of like a price check, what would you say in like a rookie pick? In a random rookie draft, where would you take him right now?
In a rookie
Like
draft.
for me, he'd be after a JE, so that's like early third.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
thinking like
That-
I feel like some people would take him sort of after that Funchess tier.
Yeah, some might, but it won't be me.
What do you think, James?
I'm just trying to figure where people are going. Yeah, I wouldn't group him in with that. There's basically his top 2 running backs and a couple after. And then when you get to that sort of maybe, but you're not really sure type running back like Buck Allen and Matt Jones and that type, I'd probably take them just before then. So yeah, you're looking at Ajayi, David Johnson kind of area.
Right.
Um,
I think the redraft is I don't think his value has quite hit the dynasty ADP type stuff yet. But it's
mhm.
definitely hitting redraft. So it's a pretty interesting situation to watch right now, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
this
going
isn't a favorable comparison, but the Toby Gerhart love kind of started in the redraft and then like melted into the dynasty world when it came to like late
Yeah.
July, August.
Yeah, definitely.
this
I could definitely see something
this
like
is
that happening.
so true, Nathan. I literally just was looking up for an old thing that I spoke about exactly the same situation with Toby Gerhart. Is his March ADP last year was 205 Dynasty ADP, and then
Jeez.
by August it was 61. It went up
Wow.
144
Holy,
spots,
wow.
That was
Oh
Gerhard?
and
my.
yeah, that was Gerhard. That he literally did nothing between that point apart from be signed by Jacksonville.
Unbelievable.
So. He's exactly. There was a list of people that I looked at were running backs who just based on the off season, not actually doing anything on the field. Monty Ball,
Yep.
Andre Ellington, Bishop Sankey, and Christian Michael and Toby Gerhart last year. Just crazy ADP rises without actually doing anything. And Randall's exactly like you said. He fits exactly into that mold of like you kind of got to prove it a little bit. It's like there's
Right.
winning the job and then there's being handed the job, and there's a big difference. It's like you got to kind of see where you're going to value someone. If you get it wrong, then it screws you up.
Are there any other guys you guys can think of that you kind of want a price check on right now? That would intrigue you.
Well,
Um,
well, the one that I put up. I mean, go ahead, James, if you have one. But I did want
not
to
off
have a
the top of
discussion
my head.
on Devontae Adams because I don't know in the last
Yeah.
like month or so there's like been a sea divided between Adams truthers and Adams haters,
There's
and
no in
like
between.
they're all like fighting each other.
Yeah, yeah. This is
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, to Russell, you say there's no in between. It's so funny. This is like a. I mean, we talked about it briefly when I spoke with Russell a few weeks ago off air. Um, we were just talking about how things basically go to the extremes in either way on some players, um, and it's difficult. I feel that way so much. It's like people want to one up each other when it comes to a player, and then suddenly you're either you gotta love him or you gotta hate him. Um, but I just think he's a second year player, unproven, fairly high draft pick, good team, but obviously behind good weapons. So, I'd love to have him on my team. So I'm not going to go crazy and spend the world for him, but I also don't think he shouldn't be on anyone's team. You should get rid of him. It's like, it's Dynasty. Have some patience and see what happens with him.
Yeah, I've become a bit wary because like a lot of guys I respect, like Matt Harmon, or other guys who
Graham Barfield, yeah.
yeah who
Mm.
have started to sour on him, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, and what's his name, Matt Kelly also. I don't think he ever
Yeah.
liked him, but
Yeah.
I respect their opinions, but I just don't see like why Adams isn't going to improve based on this year. Like he was forced into a situation. He got targets. Now he's going to get better. I'm in the like camp of truthers, I guess, but I do recognize the other points.
Yeah, I thought he was a really good sell earlier this offseason, a lot like Moncrief, and you can obviously see the decline in their value. But I don't know, like I don't. This is another situation where I'm gonna let it play out and probably not invest too much. But I definitely see what everyone's talking about in a redraft perspective. I will not be getting any shares of him this year.
Yeah.
I think barring he's got nice injury upside, but Jordy and Cobb pretty much have that offense on lockdown,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier on in this offseason, he was going in the 30 range. In February, he was 29 in Dynasty ADP, so that was a bit crazy.
It's crazy.
I can understand how you have to, if you don't like him, you kind of have to overreact to that. Like, holy mackerel, that's way too high. But now he's 42, which is
It drops
is
a round and a
okay
half for no
me.
reason.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah. It's just drive the Twitter train.
So, in terms of
Yeah.
rookie picks, where would you guys be looking at Adams right now?
Uh, I'd probably say sort of late first. I do really like him. I still think he's a good receiver. I'll take him over quite a few of the wide receivers this year. I'm just having a little look at the rookies. But yeah, around about that sort of 9 or 10 range. Probably
Yeah.
just before Perriman. Around
Yeah,
about
no.
Perriman and Aguilar.
Yeah, no. For me, I'd give 109 without blinking.
Yeah.
108 to 106 is a conversation that I'll have with myself, but the 106 is the highest I'd give up for him.
Okay. My read before I heard that was like probably around Funchess. Like I'd value him
So
over
late
Funchess,
first, yeah.
but yeah, late first, early second even.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's probably just because you can. In March you couldn't do that because he had a 29 ADP.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to we really wanted a non-biased Jordan Matthews opinion, so we made sure to have James Simpson on tonight. So let's talk a little bit about Jordan Matthews and what are we expecting out of him this year?
I don't know if you
Go ahead,
managed
James.
to see the. I don't know if you saw the background over there. I don't know whose jersey that is. Yeah. He. I think he's he's about to break out, but he's. I think of him as basically he's going to be a wide receiver one for. He's not he's not going to get to a point where he's in the conversation for one of those top guys. But he's just going to be really consistent, getting better. I don't know how you guys feel about his comparison because it's been thrown about, and some people don't like it and some people do. But early Marcus Colston numbers in terms of 70 or 80 receptions, 1,000 to 1,200 yards, and double-digit touchdowns or high single-digit touchdowns, and that's fine. That's exactly what I want, and where you're drafting him is fine. I'll take that for.
I can see why the people wouldn't like that comparison. In terms of fantasy production, I could see that type of career for him. But
yeah, just in fantasy, that's how I feel about it. Completely different as a similar type of players, but not. Matthews can do a lot more.
Yeah, he's a Matthews is a pretty fast guy, and he seems to
Yeah.
be pretty good after the catch. So that'd be a big difference between him and Colston. But when you have to make a fantasy
Yeah.
comparison, I'd say that one matches up with his fantasy ceiling. You know?
Yep, that's
Yeah.
exactly, and that's it. It's very important to make that distinction because that's where it gets interpreted wrongly. That's exactly how I
Right.
feel. Fantasy,
All right.
they compare
So,
very similarly in a fantasy world.
so the two places to compare him to, as far as a value right now, a lot of people
Hmm.
talk about him versus the sophomore receivers, and for me, I think he's
Hmm.
at number 4. I think he's after the big three, and it's a close race between him, Cooks, and A-Rob. But I think that he's
Hmm.
the safest with the like the best combination of safe and upside. I think that's Jordan Matthews. Um, and then the other one is Matthews or Aguilar. Some people have moved Aguilar above him. So what are your two
Oof.
thoughts on those two situations?
No way. I'll take
No.
Matthews over him.
Yeah, someone asked me this question on Twitter the other day, and I said it's like a parent trying to decide between their two children, because I'm been a huge fan. Like both of them, I was a huge fan in the pre-draft process. So it's like for Chip Kelly, my favorite coach, to pick two of my favorite players, I'm like, I'm going to be attached, as you can probably tell. But I think Matthews is still the sort of the guy who's going to hog the targets and hog the touchdowns and will be that go-to guy, especially in his sophomore year. I think Aguilar will pick things up, but he'll be more used. They'll more try and get him involved rather than him being involved by himself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What
So
do you think?
where do you have him ranked in the sophomore receivers?
Matthews at 4 as well. Yeah, just
Yeah.
before Cooks, just after Evans.
I would
And you,
put
Russell?
I would put Cooks in front of him, but I'd say you'd be happy with any of those five right now. I like that was such not a normal rookie class. Any other year, he'd be sort of pushing on that top tier, like the number one, you know. But obviously,
Yeah.
that's not the case with Odell Beckham.
Can,
But
can, can we talk about Mike Evans for a minute?
sure, what do you think?
Oh goodness.
No, I want to know if because I think we agree, Nathan, in that if you if you had if you loved Evans before, you probably drafted him last year, and now you've got him at his highest price point. If you love him, you'll probably keep him. But Russell, I guess, do you think now is a good time to sell Evans because he's at the number 5 Dynasty wide receiver?
It's
Or do you
tough
think he's going to hold up
because
to that?
I'm usually a very big fan of selling high when I think the price point is perfect, unless it's a guy like Calvin Dez,
Yeah.
or AJ Green,
Just the
Julio. Unless it's a super stud,
proven studs.
I think there's more value to be had in a trade than what they're bringing to you on a weekly basis, especially the younger second and third year guys. But I don't know. Like Mike Evans just could be amazing. You know what I mean? Like, and I think he showed that he has Pro Bowl All Pro potential last year. So, I'm not all in. Like, I wouldn't be all in on selling him. I'd probably want to keep him just in case, because I do think he has potential to be a top 3 to 5 guy. I loved his college production. He was unbelievable. So. Yeah, I'm not necessarily selling him even at this crazy price point.
And then I guess Nathan, are you still buying him at this point? Because I know you said you sold him for Green and some extras at some point, but in other leagues where you didn't manage to sell him, would you go buy him at being this high?
I mean, like, no, because I don't have to. Like, I mean, I'm at in a startup, maybe, like if I was in a startup and I had like the 3rd or 4th pick, I'd be okay with it. But in a trade, it's just too expensive. because I don't want to give up AJ Green in picks for Mike Evans.
Yeah.
Like,
So wait, what'd you get with AJ Green?
I got a rookie first and a Debbie second in a Debbie league.
And AJ Green for Mike Evans?
Yeah.
All right, I'd do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, okay.
Yeah.
So if you can make the lateral move and pick up assets, so trade for an AJ Green or any of those the top 5 to 7 receivers, if you can get any of those with something on top of it for Evans, I would move him for that. But anything less, and I wouldn't want quantity in this case for him either. So I definitely need a nice piece like that back.
So if it's difficult because you only really experience it if it happens to you. But say if someone offered you a Dez or a Julio straight up for him,
yes,
saying you'd feel like you want to hold, you'd say yes, you'd take that.
Yeah, I'd take that. But I have both of them ranked ahead of him in Dynasty.
Well, yeah, just above. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I
depends on the.
I have Dez and Julio ranked ahead of him, but I don't think I'd accept it straight up. If someone's offering me Dez for Mike Evans, they clearly really want Mike Evans, so I can squeeze a little more out of him.
Good point.
Yeah. So let's see. This another big redraft thing that it was also pretty big in Dynasty is the Philadelphia quarterback situation. How are you feeling about Bradford, or do you think it's a Sanchez year? What are we thinking for Philly?
Well, I basically to quote Mean Girls,
Jesus.
Nick Foles is a life ruiner. He ruins life. I basically feel like he obviously played his best football in that 2013 with Chip Kelly, but even when he was putting up the numbers, obviously I'm watching every game. There'll be a lot of people that watch every game as well, but you don't always see it. He misses open guys, and he missed open guys a lot, which is why I think he's a perfect fit for Tavon Austin, because he misses open guys and Tavon Austin can't get open.
Hey!
He throws to guys who are covered. Tavon's always covered. It's perfect. But I think if you can get any quarterback that can make decisions and basically hit that first read and do that, then they're going to be better than what Foles gave you, because he holds onto the ball for a little too long and didn't see things. But I don't know if Bradford's going to be the guy. I think Bradford's got a better chance of replicating what Foles did in 2013 than Foles ever would himself. But I mean, it's just a huge risk. I don't know. It's all dependent on health, of course.
This is the first year where I'm going through and trying to project sort of 2015 stats, and when you go down the line of like interesting redraft quarterbacks, because that's where I'm starting. You just look at that Eagles quarterback as like without the names.
Yeah.
And you look at what they're gonna get for attempts, what they're going to get for like potential touchdowns, and like just all the plays they're going to run. I'm more intrigued by that Eagles quarterback situation than I was a few weeks ago, and I kind of like Bradford. I don't know if he's going to be starting all year, but I feel like with those weapons, he could be a decent fantasy option.
Yeah, I mean, he actually, just going back to the consistency series, he was right up with the top guys in terms of percentage of top 24 weeks. So he had a decent floor, even when he was at St. Louis. I mean, he was terrible with top 12 and big weeks, but he had top 24 week 87% of the games he played, and Aaron Rodgers is 88. So it's not like he's out of the question of the top guys. And now you're going to give him weapons and a coachable, easy to play in offense for quarterback.
Quarterback friendly system for sure.
Quarterback friendly. Yeah. So I think he could easily match those floor numbers, and then you say, oh wait, he can probably improve on that. Then definitely really intriguing. And it's not like he's old at all. If he can be healthy, then he's about to hit his prime.
All right, so let's get back into or actually, we didn't say our takes on Bradford yet. For me, Bradford, I don't know, like it's like Russell said, I just see Eagles quarterback. Like I wasn't a
Yeah.
Bradford fan when he
Yeah.
was with the Rams at all, but it's just like put him in the Eagles quarterback, and it's like we'll see what happens. If you put, I think
Yeah.
if he plays 16 games, he's definitely it's like a top 9, top 10 quarterback, but not necessarily in the NFL, but just definitely in fantasy.
Yeah, that's how I'm
Yeah,
looking at it.
that's fair.
All right, so we'll revert back to the searching for consistent greatness. You can start out with running back or receiver,
Mhm.
whichever one you thought had the most interesting, and talk about a certain player, or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go with running backs first. And a winner again this year, same as last year. So last year I did percentages throughout people's whole careers, and it was a bit deceiving because you had guys like Maurice Jones-Drew, who was still around, with a high percentage, and Steven Jackson with a high percentage and things. And these numbers that I look at now are 3 years maximum. But last year, looking at Arian Foster coming off the season of injuries that he had, um, it just blew my mind like how good he really was. I just you
Mhm.
forget. So last year he was like the buy of the year for me, and obviously it worked out.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
wish
it,
I wish I was in that. That was a learning experience for me for sure because
mm,
I was fading him. I was out. Like I thought he was done. But he wasn't even that old last year. Like he was what,
no,
20,
not at all.
27? And
Yeah, something like
yeah,
that.
he's had the
Mm.
injuries, but every time he's played, he's been unbelievable. So,
And that's it.
um,
He's just in that game's played, which I really think is really important. It's like I want guys that obviously you want someone that's going to play 16 games, but if someone's going to play 13 and have running back one numbers every week, then I'll take that guy over someone who's not giving me as much upside but plays 16 games. Um, so yeah, again, he's right up there on that list. But
is
this
there?
year,
Yeah, go
gone.
ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that the top of the top 12 weeks percentage is Adrian Peterson. So
Mhm.
don't
Oh,
forget, you know, he didn't actually. The interesting thing about him is guys like Ray Rice, Jones Drew, Steven Jackson, they started to tail off before, um, you know, they slowly came off. And if you look at their percentages, they were still high, but you could see that they were declining. Peterson was still playing at a high level. Um,
hmm.
and every time he is on the field and was on the field, he was still doing that. So assuming that he hasn't lost anything health-wise over the past year, and I don't think he should have because he hasn't been broken down at all. Um, as soon as he steps on, he might just go straight back to what he was. And if that's the case, then in Dynasty, he should be valued right up there with your Lynches and your Fosters and these guys that are going to produce, but only a couple of years.
So
Yeah,
this brings up the big debate of the week, um, which is would you take him number one in a redraft league?
Yeah, I've seen this. I've seen this coincidentally loads. I was listening to the podcast with Bloom on the couch from Sigmund Bloom from last week, and talking about this as well. I'd probably say no, just off the top of my head, but maybe a couple of picks later, yeah. I think I'm looking at. It's so difficult. It's like until you get that number one, you don't really know who you're going to take.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd be my number. I think I'd still have Charles. I'd still have potentially Le'Veon Bell,
What do you think,
just
yeah,
Nick?
because. Hmm.
yeah. So it's kind of interesting. I kind of used to look at like 13, 14 games played as such like a bad thing. Like, oh, I want my guy playing 16 games, pound the table for that. But then you step
Yeah,
back and you look and you're like, okay, what Foster is giving me in 13 games, plus the 3 games he doesn't play. It's not like I'm taking a zero. He's not
yeah,
decoying. He's
Yeah.
sitting out the game, and you're still getting points. They're just not his points.
yeah,
Yeah.
It it's better to have 13 games where you're great than the same amount of points in 16 games. I mean, that
Yeah.
sounds obvious, but
Yeah.
that's
It should be obvious, but I feel like I haven't looked at it that way until recently, you know?
Mm. That's it. It's the weeks, and
yeah.
that's why I absolutely love looking through the weeks and realizing that you look at someone and they're just double digits, double digits, double digits, and it's like, oh, why didn't they have a massive yearly score? And then you go and see it. So okay, they only played a few games, but it's interesting how I was just thinking about how Peterson should be up with the Lynches and the Fosters, but Foster's down at running back 17 in Dynasty, and Lynch and Peterson are up at 10 and 11. And Foster's still a year younger, and it's just the same old thing. It's like, yeah, he's still being undervalued. So Foster again is one of these buys.
Yeah,
There's one
and
other.
DLF this week, we had Ken email us saying, hey, I want to do a Independence Day article where you declare your independence from a player. And to do that, I looked at ADP, and I saw that Adrian Peterson was the RB11. And I'm like, that makes absolutely no sense at all in Dynasty. So I declared my independence from Peterson, and that if I'm going to fade Peterson, it'll be by grabbing Lynch 1 spot higher, or it'll be by grabbing Foster 7 spots lower, or whatever it is, something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. There was one guy I wanted to highlight as well in the running backs article, who just did crazy things last year. CJ Anderson.
Yes. Okay.
Basically, ended up dedicating a whole paragraph to CJ Anderson, a whole section of the article, just because what he did in the 8 games where he was the guy was just crazy. He in 5 of the 8 games he scored over 25.6 points, which is just mental. He was in the top 24 all of those 8 weeks, and he was a running back 1, so in the top 12 7 of the 8. So I can't sort of see. I can see it slowing down slightly, obviously, because that's just ridiculous numbers. But I really think he is about to just jump straight into that top tier. So I'm buying CJ Anderson.
See, this is one of those weird, like, okay, I can see where my biases lie, type of players. Obviously, if you've listened to me at all, I'm a huge proponent of draft position, and I think it matters a ton. So I am not taking away anything from C.J. Anderson and what he did last year, but I'm worried that the Broncos still think, hey, we had Monty Ball as a second-round pick a few years ago. He played good in his rookie year, and we kind of want to get him involved a little bit this year. So I could definitely see it going either way, but I fall on the side of fading him at both his redraft and dynasty prices. I mean, how do you feel about him as a late first-round pick? Do you like that as well?
In redraft or?
Yeah, in redraft.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you're in on both sides of that. And I get it.
For me,
if he gets the role, he's all set. But I'm just a little hesitant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more in on him in redraft than Dynasty, just because he does have the fear of Monty Ball this year, but the even bigger fear of what happens post Peyton. And so, but I'm still not picking him in the first, even in redraft. In like the second, mid-second, late second, I'll take him. That's a solid spot to take him. He's not going to kill your team if you miss on him there. But in Dynasty, I'll let someone else spend a top 10 running back pick on him. It's just not what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So quick question. Out of Doug Martin, Bishop Sankey, and Monte Ball, who do you think has the best chance at becoming something at this point?
Martin Sankey Ball.
Sankey Ball.
I'm going to go Sankey Martin Ball.
Yeah, I think Ball's definitely the third in that group, but there's so many busted like second and third year running backs right now. Like one of them has to be good, right? Or are they just all terrible? I don't know. Like I don't know.
But I mean, they've sort of not necessarily just these last 2 years, but the last few years is
Yeah, right.
kind of the reason why zero running backs come about. Like, there aren't that many good ones, so you sort of go and make sure you get everyone everywhere else, and then you might hit on one late. But now that there are actually some really good running backs coming in, now I'm like, that's fair. I'm going to invest in a few.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So let's close this out with your wide receiver thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just have a quick check on what I did. I mean, obviously the standout was OBJ, and it was ridiculous. It's like,
oh goodness,
he's just better than everyone in everything. Just in terms of percentages. So I do this superstar weeks, which is it took 20.2 points to be a wide receiver one over the last few years, and it was 38.1 points on average to be the top scoring wide receiver for each week. So a superstar week is where you hit the middle of that. So 29.1 points, and Beckham hit it 42% of the time.
Wow.
And the next best was Calvin Johnson at 26%.
Yeah, no, like it was unbelievable, just all year.
And it's like, you can say he's got to regress at some point, and everyone has their ups and downs. But even if he regresses a little bit, he just won't stop being the player that he was. I don't think there's no reason to. He just stood out that much. So he might not hit 42% like last time, but if he's down there with the 26% with Calvin, that's okay. That's okay with me.
This was the conversation I had to have with myself a few weeks ago, and I tweeted a little about it. It's like, yeah, okay, he's going to regress off what he did last year, but what does that even mean? You know what I mean? Like, okay, to 1,400 yards and 12 touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm in on him, I guess.
Yeah, no, it took me a while with OBJ to just settle in that I didn't have any shares.
Yeah, that's the other part. Yeah,
it had to settle in. But literally, the only valid excuse you can have for not having him as a top 3 dynasty asset is the hamstrings. But he had the hamstring problem last year, and it didn't matter. Even if his hamstrings were torn in half, he was still making amazing plays. Like, he had all these injuries in the Pro Bowl. He was playing in the Pro Bowl for no reason. He's not human. And if the hamstring keeps him off the field, that's the issue. But that's really the only issue you can think of with OBJ for me.
Yep.
Yeah. The two other guys that kind of stood out a bit. Randall Cobb in a positive way, and DeAndre Hopkins in a negative way.
Yes.
Oh.
Randall Cobb, basically, I just didn't realize how much he was sort of up there with the rest of them in terms of percentages. So he was 4th in top 24 percentage.
Wow.
So it's just behind Antonio Brown, Demaryius Thomas, and AJ Green. Just above Julio, Calvin, Dez. And then he was, I think, 8th or 9th in top 12 percentage, right up there with Julio, Dez, Jordy. And he just really stood out as I knew he was good, but he should be right up there. He should be right up there.
Yeah, I wasn't in that either. I hear a lot of people talking about him regressing as well. Do you think he's a good regression candidate? Because I look at that Packers offense and I say, okay, Rodgers is throwing 40 touchdowns, right?
Yeah.
Jordy's going to get, 13, 12? That still leaves 27 to 30 touchdowns, So who's going to get those that aren't Cobb? That is my way of thinking about it,
Richard Rodgers.
Yeah. I mean, Kuhn's going to get his rushing touchdowns and whatever, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the one unrelated. Sorry to butt in, Nathan. Just
go ahead.
The one guy who I think might regress in that offense is Eddie Lacy, and I don't really necessarily It sounds stupid. Don't have any necessary reasoning for it. It's just he's the Dynasty RB2 right now, and I think that's asking a lot. And I think he might be the one that disappoints in that offense because I don't think he's like, if you're dropping someone at RB2, that's like, you want him to be either a superstar over a shorter period of time or he's going to be a superstar at some point. I think that's just a bit rich. He could be okay, but I think he might be the one from the offense that does disappoint this year, whereas all the receivers and everyone will sort of still keep it up because Rodgers is still Rodgers.
All right, so one last thing I want to touch on, and this is something that's beginning to grow as best ball redraft leagues as well as best ball dynasty leagues are becoming more and more popular. And the phrase "such and such player is better" in a best ball, it's something that's being said a lot, and I think this year series could have some connection here. I've often questioned the validity of the statement. Like, do high variance players really kill you that much in normal leagues, or do they help you that much in best ball? Do you have any opinion on that about how in a best ball phrase? Do you think it's a valid phrase, or do you think it might be overdone? What do you think?
That's a good question. It's hard to directly relate. I mean, it makes sense that what I've done kind of relates to that, but it's hard to say really. I mean, in the last piece where I sort of summarised everything, I just linked to a couple of things by Brian Malone, and Adam Harstead that look at consistency and sort of ups and downs, and basically, you win your head-to-head matchups by people getting big scores. You usually win by blowouts, so you're not necessarily looking for guys who give you all the same, like a 10 points all throughout the year. You do want guys that have that sort of up and down. So I would say that based on the series, you want to get guys that have the high top 12 weeks and the high superstar weeks, as opposed to those guys that are the top 24 consistent weeks. When you're looking at best ball, you might just want to get the guys that hit on that up and down level. But really, I don't think it does apply too much because it's very unpredictable.
I have an example, sort of an anecdotal example. Like, I owned Vincent Jackson in 2012 and 2013 in a couple leagues. Mm-hmm. And I felt like it was pretty easy to tell the weeks he was going to go off. Like, while he had really bad weeks sometimes, it was like you look and you see he's playing the 32nd ranked pass defense, and like he pretty much produced every time that happened. And like when you see him play the Seahawks, like he just gets shut down. Like he was actually really predictable on which weeks he went off. So that's another sort of frame like that you can look at it from,
Yeah, I mean there are some players that are,
that's interesting stuff.
Here you go. It's just difficult, I think. Yeah, I mean you still just want to get players that give you the best chance to be in the top 12 or top 24 each week.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if someone once in a while has a massive game.
I wasn't disputing you. I was just saying like it more just about the best ball stuff.
Yeah.
I guess sometimes it's easier to predict than we'd think.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I don't think there's. The way players score points each year is slightly random, but how they do it over a longer period of time is more consistent. So it's hard to say that this guy's going to be really good because you don't know each year how they.
Yeah, that's interesting. For me, and it kind of seems like the simplest man way to do it. But when I'm looking at players, I'm looking at who's going to score me more points, who's going to score me more points for longer. And I do understand there's a value. Mm-hmm. There's a value in consistency. There's a value in pretty much every element of point scoring, I guess. But first and foremost, I'm just worrying about which one's going to score the most points. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say score most points, are you saying score most points over the year or score most points each week?
over the year, and I'll worry about the weekly thing when I do lineups type of thing. And while there's value in finding the really consistent guys, I think that if when I use like 4for4's rankings, I feel like they give me the best shot to win. As long as I have the best players, that everything will come out the right way.
Yeah, and I mean I completely agree. The points are a result of the players, so the points are just the end game. You've got to get the right players, and then they give you those points. So it's not about just chasing the points in the past. It's like you get the best players, they'll give you the best points.
James, hit on. We gotta go, but hit on Hopkins real quick and why he was seen in a negative light.
Yeah, it was basically just he got a lot of his points in only a couple of games. So he had like a 40-point week, I think, and in general, the rest of his percentages compared to a lot of other people aren't very high, so he's not actually getting in the top 12 that often. It's just when he did, he went big. So you look at his points at the end of the year,
Right.
and he's racked up a lot of yards and a lot of points. But oh wait, it was just in a couple of games. It's basically the thing that led me to do this in the first place was Doug Martin in his rookie year, because I owned him in one league and he basically went off for those couple of weeks, which was great. It wins you those games, but very deceiving when you come to the end of the year and you see he was the running back 3 on the year because he wasn't that good.
Right.
All right, James, this was a lot of fun. Let our listeners know where they can find your writing, your twittering, and the such.
Yeah, you can find me on Dynasty League Football all the time. My Twitter is JS@JS_football.
Nice.
Was that football or football? Which one?
Football. Foosball. Soccer ball.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for tuning in, guys, and we'll look at the numbers and award the Tevin Coleman MFL 0 to somebody.
Thanks for tuning in, guys, and as
Thank
always,
you.
we'd appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Me and Nathan put in a lot of effort to eating those hot dogs today, so yeah. All right, we'll see you next week, guys.
Yeah.